Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
You know what absolutely would devastate me? I mean, I might finally give it up, join the ranks of the totally cynical, and believe that nothing good is possible. And it's not that I think this will happen, but I was just looking at a picture of Gabby Giffords and her husband, Mark Kelly. And when she appeared yesterday at the site of her shooting and the murder of so many innocent people, and she's standing there and he's standing behind her with his arms grasping her and his head down on her shoulder. Every time I see these two, I think, what love. What a loving, wondrous relationship that appears to be. And again, appears because none of us know what's really going on in anybody's private lives. But if it were announced in the paper that these two are getting divorced, I'd hang it up. I'd say, that's it. It's over. Nothing's possible. I'm finished. I have faith in nothing. I can't deal with it. Okay, so, guys, just you and me today. Sokolowski is gallivanting around in the Big Apple someplace, so we're on our own. And lots to talk about, obviously. I want to start with an email from John, who wrote this, obviously, after listening to yesterday's program with Chris Potter. And I always tell people, actually, even if you were to see me an hour after a show and you would say, what did you talk about on the show today? You might see a totally blank look immediately cross my face. I sometimes have, it's always with broadcasting, since, as a boss of mine once said, it's really nothing more than vapor. You know, it's off into the, well, this was a television boss, and he said, it's nothing more than video vapor. And what we do here is like audio vapor, although that was broadcast. This on the internet lives forever. It's, there's no getting rid of it. But because it is, I mean, there's a sense of just let it go. It was said, keep going, blah, blah, blah. And so I often literally cannot think of what it was I was saying an hour before, because I'm already moving forward, reading, observing, thinking about what might be a subject for the next show. At any rate, I think I have interrupted myself about 4 times. And if you think I've forgotten where I'm going, you're absolutely incorrect. So what I'm saying is I can't quite remember what Potter and I were talking about, but John has written an email after listening to the show, and he's not happy. He says his complaint is that of all the jabbering we did not speak about Eric Holder, the Attorney General, and the person he calls the dear leader, I assume that's Barack Obama, that here he says, you left out the bit where Eric Holder and the dear leader have decided that drones might be used on American citizens in America. I assume you and Chris think this is more paranoia from the right, not worthy of the news, according to Lynn. Well, right there, your assumption, if you're listening, John, is wrong. And I feel without a doubt that I can say that for Chris Potter as well. I obviously have been intending to talk about this subject, and strangely, today was the day I was going to. This is a subject that is so fraught in many ways, I think, that I sort of dread stepping into it. But I intend to today. So we were not avoiding that subject, just so as you know. And then he goes on to say, sure, it's a minor news story. Never mind a death sentence without trial. And I don't suppose getting droned before a day in court has anything to do with the Muslim Major Hassan, who gunned down 13 Americans at Fort Hood, yelling Allahu Akbar. No, not terrorism, more like workplace violence. No contradiction here. That man is yet to go to trial, which I find so bizarre. Why is that? How long ago was that guy killed all those people at Fort Hood? And the last I heard of him, there was like a 2-month standoff in the court about whether or not his beard could be shaved. What? So far, John, you're assuming all kinds of things, and frankly, I'm on the same page with you. Seriously. And then he goes on to say, then the two of you cite findings from the highly questionable Southern Poverty Law Center. There, I will part ways with you. While taking pokes at the Tea Party, whose only mission is in promoting smaller government and the return to constitutional principles. That's essentially it. No racism, no suggestion of gun violence, no immediate need for insurrection. Okay, here's where we start taking our separate paths. And maybe I'll just stop. I'll jump to the last paragraph. Lynn, from listening to you, I have come to the conclusion that we are split nearly down the middle concerning the battle for the heart and soul of this nation. That said, I don't believe those on the left are about to change opinion any more than those on the right. I do believe, however, this current administration must force its hand and do something so totally outrageous before the vast majority of those on the left realize their efforts were in vain. What will the outrage be? That's the key question. I suppose we shall have to wait and see. We have almost 4 years to find out. Okay, so this guy obviously is pretty much diametrically opposed to much of what I favor. But he's incorrect in assuming that I am not concerned about this drone stuff. And he's incorrect about my confusion about why that trial never went forward. Okay, so whatever. That said, and John, not because of this email, which I just saw, the way I wanted to come at the drone thing, frankly, was, and this is, I love it, it's because of Rand Paul's filibuster yesterday. Now, I have been so enraged by what has happened in the Senate about filibuster. It's misuse, it's abuse, it's absolute devolution into something that is as easy as snapping your fingers and saying, all right, I'm filibustering, so we can't do anything. As opposed to what it had always been, which is one senator taking the floor, holding it as long as he could by just simply speaking. And, of course, that great, great Jimmy Stewart movie that illustrated it more than any other. Was that Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, I believe. And Rand Paul yesterday, a guy who I don't think I've ever said one nice thing about, Rand Paul took to the Senate floor yesterday and said, I'm going to do this until I can't do it anymore. And lo and behold, he was good for almost 13 hours. He went on. And what he felt so strongly about was this issue of drones and Holder's memo, suggesting that in a who knows, in the most extraordinary hypothetical situation, yes, I guess maybe a president could, to stop a horror like 9/11, take an American out with a drone if the American was in fact about to attack this country, blah, 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 blah. So that is not, I mean, there's so much unsettled law and executive power regarding executive power with this new technology, drones being obviously the thing that's most in our sights at the moment. And it's a very important issue. And I don't think there's anyone who, thinks that Rand Paul's question, which was, by the way, a question he put to the president's nominee for the Central Intelligence Agency, who then said to the senator, I cannot answer that. You'll have to ask the attorney general. That's a legal question. So he did. And then a memo comes back saying, yeah, who knows, maybe in the most, I don't think it would ever happen, but. And then he didn't rule out the possibility that, again, with extraordinarily extenuating circumstances in a moment of national peril, that the president could take out an American with a drone on American soil. Now, that right there, I'm ambivalent about. I mean, I can argue both sides of that. If, in fact, I mean, it's not as though, if you knew, you'd uncovered a plot, and you knew that a terrorist, who happened to be an American terrorist, who was in this country, was about to, who knows what, poison the water supply of Portland, Oregon, or take out the Super Bowl, or something like that. You knew it. You knew it 99% sure, and a gazillion people were potentially going to die, and there'd be chaos. And what do you think? Does the president have the right to say, just... Now, of course, it goes against all of, yes, you have to be charged, you have to have a jury, but what if you don't have time? I don't know. I'm trying to just do this as a realist. At any rate, it's an issue that should be discussed. I appreciate Senator Paul doing his filibuster over something of import. We have a caller. Hello, caller.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I just find this whole topic fascinating because remember back during the Bush administration, they told us that it was okay to torture people as long as there was a ticking time bomb.
Correct.
And now that's fine, but I think over the years and various, on the cable TV with the police videos, I think there's at least a few occasions where there have been people holding hostages and the cops have either shot guns out of their hands or shot them. I don't quite understand how that's different. I mean, given the example you were just giving, if somebody is holding a bunch of people, say a terrorist was holding a bunch of people hostage and the president said that he was going to kill these people, I'm not sure why I should consider that to be different. I think it is different if you're in the case that I think Rand Paul is talking about, where the imminent is not so clear.
Well, what if something, though, is imminent? What if there is certain knowledge that there's going to be, let's say that something like Oklahoma City, where at the, a half hour before it happens, let's say McVeigh was sort of being surveilled, and all of a sudden they realized, oh my God, he's got the, and he's got the truck, and he's going toward the, looks like he's going toward the, and there was no way. I mean, to apprehend him for sure, or there was an attempt to apprehend him in which he died. Is it not better that he would die than all those people and children die? I mean, I don't understand. You stop.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to work through is there any hypocrisy on our part? And I don't think so, because I'm thinking of it the way you're thinking of it.
Oh, you are?
So
we're all getting
I basically agree with you. I didn't call up to argue. I was just kind of trying to sort through my own thoughts and what that guy was saying, because they've been saying this now for a year. And I just think, to me, it seems that if there's hypocrisy, it's still on their side, because, it seems like there's far more justification for taking out somebody who's going to imminently kill people than there is for torture, which
may or may not lead to information that, okay.
They were, for 8 years, and to this day, they were fine with that.
But on their side, they could say, but torture, they're still able, the tortured person is not dead. You guys don't want to torture somebody, which leaves them, which might, in fact, lead to information which would help save innocent lives. But you're willing to just take somebody out. Look, when we're talking about any of this stuff, how do you keep your hands clean? I don't think we do.
I always hated it when they would talk about watching the TV show 24 and torturing people left and right and how great that was. And here when you're talking about this, I'm thinking about a zillion cop shows that I've seen where they, somebody is holding a gun against someone else's head and the cops shoot that person.
Right.
And that seems like what we're talking about.
Exactly right.
And I don't really like to use that, but that certainly doesn't seem like anybody would disagree with that.
Well,
the cops, or in this case, the president taking that person out.
But of course, as you know,
I don't quite understand why.
Because who's the president? Because, okay.
Well, right.
Yeah. Because
I guess I'm trying to figure out if I'm being a hypocrite or not.
Yeah, right. Because if this were George Bush, okay, let's put George Bush back in the White House, and this were all happening, and he was saying, I got the right to take out somebody on American soil who's a danger to people. And you don't trust his judgment.
Right.
And you assume, oh, yeah, sure, so he's going to take out, who knows what, somebody on my side who is not, in fact, a threat. Might be a threat to him politically, but is not a threat to the country. That's the problem.
It does seem like that case where this happened overseas, there does seem to be some questions, a good deal of questions there. So, I mean, is the question... And then the other question...
I have to tell you, I don't have a problem with them taking out that guy. The guy who said to be a...
Right, and the other question, I think that's where you and I always separate on things, but the other question is, why should we be limiting this discussion to American citizens anyways?
Yeah, like we're so special?
I mean, and that's the other part where I separate with the emailer.
Okay.
He has no problems with us dropping bombs on non-American citizens for the last 12, 13 years. So...
Good point.
I don't know. That, to me, seems like pretty hypocritical, too.
Good point. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Bye. Part of the reason I guess I avoided this subject is because it is so... I think of a bunch of Talmudic rabbis sitting around for 400 years arguing one point of the Torah, which is, what those bearded guys did. And to a certain extent, I guess, still do. And this is not, snap. I got the answer here. No. If things were so easy, and I think President Obama once said about his job, and it's a very sobering reality that I think we should bear in mind. He said... because he sits at the top of the pyramid, he said that any decision that can readily be handled beneath his station gets handled. Where things are looked at and, okay, that's a no-brainer, we're doing this, we're doing that. You don't have to, he can't look at everything that's going on in his government at all times. He said the only thing that gets to my desk, the only things that get to my desk are the things that it's not easy, where you can't figure it, where it's a judgment call, where it's not clean, where it's not, oh, absolutely, where it requires this agony of balancing all kinds of things. And sometimes, I guess, balancing one civil liberty with another civil liberty. Is it more important that this American individual has the right to a fair trial and right to life? Or if you think he's about to kill about 100,000 other Americans, do his rights absolutely have to disappear because of the potential deprivation of the lives of all these other people brought on by him? That you don't have time to give him a trial. You don't have time. Now, maybe, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I do not know. Another caller, not. Okay. And I want to point out that while Rand Paul was doing his filibuster, now we got a call. Hello?
You know, the point you just made about the president receiving all the heart problems, I can remember John Kennedy saying that Dwight Eisenhower told him that when John Kennedy was entering office. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. It's the truth. I mean, my God, they don't deal. Think of how many employees they have. They're like the CEO of the largest. Think of all that. They can't possibly deal with most of the decisions that get made by the government every single day.
That's
and the
true.
only thing that makes it into the only stuff that makes it into the Oval Office is the stuff that everybody under him is afraid to touch.
That's true. And sometimes when you make those decisions, it's almost a no-win situation.
Exactly. What a job.
I know. I can't imagine why anybody would really want it, but there's people who do.
Thank God. Just
okay.
Thank
Well,
you.
good talking to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Goodbye. Okay, so some senators who either wanted the spotlight or agreed with him did spell him. You can do that. He can cede the floor to somebody who has agreed to give it right back to him and rest his voice for a while. I don't think he can leave the floor, so I don't think he can go use the bathroom or anything. So 13 hours, that's pretty good. Okay, so here's the thing. So Rubio gave him a break, and the idiot from Wisconsin, Senator Johnson, gave him a little break, and that creep from Texas, Cruz, gave him a little break. And then, lo and behold, there's one of the more liberal Democrats in the Senate, Ron Wyden of Oregon. And he's giving probably the most conservative senator, Rand Paul, a break during his filibuster to speak in favor, to be on the same side as. And here's where the left, farther left, and the farther right, where things become sort of circular and they end up in the same place with a very heavy distrust of government. And Senator Wyden, among many things, he said he had a question. But this is the statement he made. And this is what it comes down to. Now, put the way he puts it, it sounds like the answer is a president shouldn't be able to do that. But listen to Senator Wyden's phrasing. Mr. President, what it comes down to is every American has the right to know when their government believes that it is allowed to kill them. That's right. How are you going to argue that? On the other hand, how does the government answer that? because, again, they do not know what the situation would be, who that American is, what that American is up to, what are the circumstances. It is, and I would say to Senator Wyden, one of those, and I think Holder in his memo to Rand Paul tried to explain, look, I don't think this would ever, but if it were, and blah, blah, blah. He made so many efforts to say, of course we're not going to abuse this. But those who remain very skeptical of allowing presidents too much power are not lunatics. They're people who see what can happen when the wrong person is in that job and then violates their pledge to the American people, their oath, and really does something that would be outrageously wrong. I don't know. So anyway, time for a break. And unless somebody else has anything else they want to throw into this mind-bending topic, I'm moving on because I got lots of other stuff to talk about. Okay? We'll be back in just about a minute.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
Go to bergbargains.com for great deals on museums, shows, and meals from your favorite local restaurants. This week only, get discounts up to 30% on gift cards to Hyde Park. Supplies are limited. bergbargains.com, Pittsburgh's best bargains. bergbargains.com.
This is the sound of a flat-screen television hurled off a building. Now the new bike your kid wants. These are the things you could have, all cast into oblivion. Because when you throw away money on wasted electricity, you throw away everything you could have bought with it. Use Energy Star light bulbs and appliances, and you could save hundreds of dollars a year. Saving energy saves you money. Learn more at EnergySavers.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Energy and the Ad Council.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn at pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
All right, some more on our somewhat dysfunctional government. I think I should jettison that somewhat. Our dysfunctional government. And this is in regard to one of our states. Arkansas adopting a ban on abortions after 12 weeks of pregnancy. Now, I'm no constitutional scholar, but I can tell you right now, that's unconstitutional. It's just flat out unconstitutional. So why was a state legislature spend all its time doing this, passing it? The governor vetoes it. They override his veto, and they know it's unconstitutional. Go ahead. We got to call him. Hello?
Hey, Lynn.
Yeah.
Georgia and Moon.
Georgia and Moon.
Yes, I want to get my 2 cents in on this.
Drones.
Drone thing.
Okay.
I don't know where to start.
Yeah, I know. I know the feeling.
I think this is a little overblown.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we use some basic basic standards that we had in the past according to the Constitution, number one is I think that the concern about attacking Americans abroad with armed unmanned aircraft is a big concern. Okay, the second concern is attacking or observing Americans with unmanned aircraft in the United States. Is that kind of a good separation there?
Well, I mean, yeah, I'll take your separation. Okay, those are two separate things.
Now,
yes.
the thing domestically that we're talking about right now with Ron Paul in the Senate with the filibuster, I give him credit for that. That was great.
I thought so, too.
I'm surprised he only lasted 13 hours, but he had plenty of people talking there. I think it's because I watched it on and off last night.
Yeah, but I don't think he can leave the floor, right?
Yes, he can leave the floor because there's no rules for this. He's just doing it without rules. Yeah, he can leave the floor. He did. He had surrogates step in for him. So it
I thought
started
even
out,
if so then why did he said he...
well, that's what I'm getting to.
Okay, go ahead.
I think this started out, I think he got the attention of his supporters because it's a serious issue of using unmanned, armed or unarmed aircraft domestically against potential American citizen enemies. Okay, and I think it's a very good thing to talk about and expose and talk more about and debate in the Senate, certainly. Right. But what it evolved into was a Republican showboating on all their other issues. If you listened and watched, they got into all kinds of other issues, dragged it on, come back to Ron Paul stuff, but then dragged it into everything else also.
Oh, sure, because for 13 hours, they're not going to stay on topic. I did not listen.
But they didn't even get into the stuff that I thought was important. Here's what I think is important.
Okay.
Unmanned aircraft in the United States being used by the CIA, I think, is a very big problem. Because in the past, we've never... Two types of federal organizations we don't permit to operate within domestically.
CIA and the military.
The CIA and the military.
That's correct.
But in the case of the military, we give them special powers in immediate or national emergencies. Remember,
here's an odd
President
thing.
and the Vice President gave that power to the Air Force to shoot down the flights during 9/11.
Correct.
And they didn't care whether it was an American or a foreigner guiding that plane to it that was attacking the buildings in Washington.
That is correct, and they weren't giving that person a trial. They were willing to shoot him out.
So we do give special permission to the military at times to do that, to operate within the U.S.
Yes.
Now, the CIA, we never do that. That's supposed to be handled by domestic intelligence of the FBI.
Correct.
And lower police agencies.
Right.
Remember, we got like 4 layers of lower police. We got the local, we got the county, we got the state, and we got the FBI. They would be the police agencies that would go after Americans who are about to commit a crime. I don't care what the size of it is. Now, the technology, I think, is aside from this. Okay, that technology is not of a concern as far as weapons. I don't think they're ever going to weaponize drones in the U.S. It would just be a total waste and impractical. The reason we used unmanned aircraft weaponized abroad is because they save pilots' lives and aircrew lives. There's no such threat in the U.S. of them being shot down by anti-aircraft hostile forces in the U.S. So they wouldn't weaponize a drone. They wouldn't weaponize it.
Right.
It would be for observation.
I also want to say that the use of drones outside of the U.S., you saying it keeps our pilots from being killed. It also, though, because a drone is such a pinpoint.
No. Okay, well, you're wrong on that. The weapons that are launched from those drones are the same weapons launched from manned aircraft. They are highly accurate GPS-guided weapons, bombs. They were weaponized by the CIA by putting them on drones. The difference is there's not a man on a drone. And that's what saves lives. And that's appropriate if you have the proper intelligence of your target. If they would think of using that in the U.S., I think that would be a very serious problem. And it shouldn't be done. But the bigger problem that they're not talking about is the reconnaissance and intelligence gathering of unmanned aircraft in the U.S. Flying those very silent aircraft around the U.S. for intelligence, I think, is the bigger threat. They're not going to use weaponized drones in the U.S. If they do, that's completely crazy, and we should fight against that. There is no reason to have unmanned combat aircraft flying around the United States. We have combat aircraft with highly accurate GPS bombs on those aircraft and machine guns and weapons that our Air Force is on a quick reaction alert, and that would be appropriate.
I want to ask you if you saw this. I was just looking. My son sent me this yesterday. This is reported by CNN. An unmanned drone came within 200 feet of a commercial airliner over New York City.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
200 feet, triggering an FBI appeal to the public for any information about the unusual and potentially dangerous incident. The crew of an Alitalia flight approaching Kennedy Airport reported it. We saw a drone aircraft, and he's telling air traffic controllers that. The FAA is investigating. The fact of the matter is they don't know anything about it. Nobody knows what...
Yeah.
Okay.
See, that's the whole thing that has not been talked about in the public eye and in the media, is that I believe that police agencies are already using them, having been turned over to them by either the military or the CIA to use as for gathering intelligence, photographic and otherwise.
And also, wait a minute, there are states that have passed legislation saying that it is against the law in that state for a police agency to use drones. That's states.
What I mean. The whole protocol of all that stuff has not been worked out, and it has not been debated in the public as to what state agencies would operate it, how they would do it. Least of all, issues with commercial aircraft. What the protocol is for identifying. I think right now they don't identify them because they want them to be secret. They want them to be able to gather intelligence secretly, without being exposed. But that gets into problems with commercial aircraft operations.
Good Lord, 200. A drone could have taken that plane down.
Yes.
The skies will be so.
Right.
It'll be like
especially if it gets out of hand. Yeah, if it gets out of hand, and everybody in Homeland Security and all the states want to have their own drone system, you're going to see stuff out there, and there needs to be oversight, control, and a justification for it, especially if it's being done secretly against Americans.
Yes.
This is a big issue, real big issue.
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt about it. It's
not
why I've avoided
It's not armed drones that are the problem here. I think it's the intelligence drones here.
Okay.
It's the armed ones overseas against Americans.
Okay. Hey, thank you for all that.
Okay, thank you.
Well done. Thank you. And here's Ray. Before I go on with my input, I want to note that your Tea Party emailer wrote that they are battling for the hearts and souls of the people, not their minds. That's a little dig there. Let's try to keep minds in the equation and leave the souls out of it. The Islamist extremists are the ones who battle for souls, and see where that takes them. As for the drone controversy, I want to return to my point on the gun control issue. Technology we just don't understand. Let's acknowledge that the government has the resources to kill us if they want to. Okay? They don't need drones to do it. Yep. They just need justification. Okay. But just because we don't understand drone technology doesn't mean it's a complicated technology. Google remote control quadcopter, and you will find incredible devices that can carry cameras or explosives over great distances with little or no fear of detection. And they can be bought from Amazon.com for a few $100. People with a mind to will soon be able to go around our checkpoints, TSA lines, walls, and no-fly zones. Thanks to miniaturization and battery improvements, our world will be changing beyond our imagination. As usual, Ray is inserting a great deal of reality into the conversation. Until we change our minds, he says, and work to change the minds of our enemies, we will never be able to build billion-dollar walls that a $10 rock can breach. The future is now, and it's scary. Ray, of all the emails you've written, I think that's one of the dooziest. That's a humdinger. There's no stopping this technology. So, we can have protocols till we're blue in the face, but Ray is right. These drones will become miniaturized to the point where they're like gnats, and they will be available to me, to you, to anybody, and they will be able to gather information and look in your drawers and do whatever they want to do. So, I don't know. I guess we got to wake up. But on the other hand, trying to stop this technological age from taking us where it's going I think, is well nigh impossible. It's why I'm so queasy about it and have been all for decades now. It's running away with us. So I know I always sit here and I often look out the window. I have big skyscrapers in my view here and big windows. And I can just imagine in 10 years what that sky is going to look like. With busy little things all over and the poor birds dodging them left and right. Great email, Ray. Taking a break.
More is on the way with Lynn Cullen Live.
Pittsburgh City Paper is available now. Pick up one today for our special summer camp section. Plus, Joel McHale, Lord of the Dance, and the latest news on Ravenstall and the upcoming mayoral election. Pittsburgh City Paper, available at over 1,700 locations throughout western Pennsylvania and on the web at pghcitypaper.com and on your smartphone at citypapermobile.com.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we've got a pep talk that can motivate you.
Sometimes things don't always turn out the way you want them to.
You can improve your future. Now get your game face on and take the first step towards a better life. Hurry up. Don't make me repeat myself.
Whatever level of motivation you need, we've got a pep talk for you. Call 1-877-38-YOUR-GED or visit yourged.org for your pep talk and for free classes in your area. GED is a registered trademark of the American Council on Education. Brought to you by Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
Henry writes, how soon before Google or some other corporation begins using drones for gathering entertainment footage? Well, I would suspect they might be doing that already because, drones carry cameras. So to get into areas that would be very difficult to access with, the equipment necessary, I would not be surprised if they weren't already using drones. Henry also says one thing we should darn well acknowledge is the death of privacy for Americans. Yeah. Indeed. Indeed. Given this technological age, I don't know how we can pretend that what we used to consider our right to privacy is still the same. And in many ways, we have given up our right to privacy. At least younger generations have. They don't even have the same understanding of the word, as you can see, because of they're living in a world in which Facebook and everything gets shared. And the assumption of sort of private spheres and public spheres, and we've talked about this in the past, is so blurred. I don't know. I know drones are being used quite a bit already. I know they're used in agriculture quite a bit. Stop and think with these forest fires that rage coming up, I suppose, in the spring and summer, that drones would be able to, remember the forest ranger standing in a big tower in the middle of a forest with his binoculars looking for smoke? Well, there goes his job, because obviously drones could provide that surveillance function. I suspect there's no end to what they could do. In terms of traffic control, what they could do. But a big difference is weaponized or not weaponized. The fact is all of these things all these possibilities are there. Jeez. Oh, Lord. Incredible. Incredible world. Can I move on? I know if I do, someone will come back to the subject, but that's okay, because I just want to throw a few other little tidbits out. I was saying about Arkansas, this just blows my mind. The anti-abortion crowd is simply down to harassment on every level. harassment, whether it's, again, tying up an entire state legislature with arguments on a bill that is, prima facie unconstitutional, so that they send this unconstitutional abortion restriction bill to the governor, and he says, it's blatantly unconstitutional. He vetoes it, sends it back, and they pass it. They override his veto, so now we got this law, which is, of course, superseded by all these Supreme Court rulings regarding abortion, which gives a woman, I believe, 24 weeks before she is denied the right to choose. But within that first 24 weeks, she's got it. They can't drop it down to 12. It doesn't work that way. There are other states that have dropped it down to 20, and those are unconstitutional too, although I don't believe they've made their way to the Supreme Court. It's part and parcel of, again, this conservative effort to just stymie government, to keep government dealing with things that are manufactured, that are wastes of time, that have foregone conclusions, which wipe out all of the argument, all of the time, all of the wasted energy, all of which, of course, could be spent on improving the lives of their constituents in a truly constructive manner. Just mind-blowing. Hey, you see the American Cardinals got in trouble. I love it. I think of our American, Cardinals as a pretty conservative bunch, but apparently they ain't conservative enough. The Vatican slapped them down and shut them up because they were holding press conferences. And it's not that they said anything that they were not supposed to say, but listen to this. Listen to this persnickety little quote from, who is this? Who's the guy who said this? The director of the Vatican press office. We are all very well aware of the strength of the Americans. They are very well organized in their communications methods. They do a very good job at that. But as we continue this election journey and realize the utter seriousness of the importance of confidentiality when they make great decisions, the Cardinals must make the decision among themselves, speaking with their brother Cardinals. So he's saying, oh, yes, you Americans, you're such grandstanders. You're good at this kind of thing. But if you're going to be serious, you'll shut up. Now, again, the American Cardinals said nothing that violated any of what had happened behind the Vatican walls. And now there's all kind of chatter about what this affront to the Americans or rebuff of the Americans, how that could play out in the College of Cardinals during their conclave. And there is a very respected watcher of all things Vatican who said that this could actually make it more possible that the Americans will have more power in the conclave. He said, what the Vatican did by closing down the Americans, he said, might make some cardinals from other parts of the world more favorably inclined to the Americans. Because they'll look at the Americans and they'll think, they're not really part of the power structure, are they? They're part of us, sort of the outsider cardinals. They're not part of this inside Italian crowd. And they're looked at as outsiders, as we have always been. And there might be, among some cardinals who harbor some progressive tendencies, which they've kept under their red hats, there might be some sense that, wow, imagine if we had like a pope who was more transparent, like these Americans appear to be. Now, of course, we here would say, transparent? Are Cardinals? I don't think so. But, again, everything is relative. Whatever. That's just one of the things. I always get pulled into this when they do a new pope thing. I always do. So if you're not interested in it, God help you. Oh, and other things, Cardinal. There is a particular tailor in Rome who always makes the Pope's robes. And so, because there'll be a new Pope in maybe just a few weeks, and it's not known who that guy's going to be, the tailor has busily made the Pope's robes in small, medium, and large. And they're already on display, the 3 hand-sewn white papal cassocks, on display in the tailor's windows. To be delivered, one of those cassocks is going to be pulled off as soon as the tailor... So maybe the tailor knows about this before the rest of the world. Because they got to trot the guy out, and he's got to be wearing his papal robe. So I have no idea, but they're making them in small, medium, and large for whoever might, in fact, wear the papal robes next. Yet another entry into the mayoral sweepstakes. This would be County Councilman Bill Robinson. Potter was saying yesterday, that everybody's in, but there's no African American. Well, now there is. And let me tell you, he's got no chance, nor does Wayne Fontana, there's so many people that are in that you're thinking, what are you even, what is the point here? Also, I mentioned yesterday, in regard to some of this sort of dovetails with the drone conversation, that there is increasing concern about the militarization of local police forces. And this is driven by a lot of federal legislation and making monies available and making tanks available to little bucolic towns in New Hampshire and all of that, and how every, something like Wilmerding has a SWAT team now. It doesn't matter how tiny you are, you got your SWAT team and all this kind of stuff. The ACLU has launched an effort to just simply gather information. They're not suing anybody. They want to know just how much stuff do all you departments have? What is its use? How has it been used? How many times has your SWAT team been called out, and for what purposes? And when I mentioned this yesterday, I did not know if Pennsylvania was one of the states involved, and yes, it is, as it turns out. And so the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police will have been one of the departments yesterday that was on the receiving end of this request from the ACLU, as if the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police doesn't have enough to do these days. Here's another little factoid that I thought I would share. And this is research done by the Journal of the American Medical Association. One of the things when we're talking about gun control in this country is the paucity of hard data about gun violence. What guns are used, who uses them, blah, 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 who has them, what law. Because, again, the NRA and its enablers have made it well nigh impossible for federal agencies to do what they need to do to compile this kind of data. So you find out the ATF literally can't do what you would think the ATF was supposed to be doing, which is keeping track of guns. Firearms. They're practically enjoined by laws that have been passed relatively recently with the NRA's, cudgel over our terrified Congress to prevent the ATF from doing what it's supposed to do. Also, there's a preventing of the National Institutes of Health from doing the kind of public health data compilation and research regarding gun violence and its impact on the health and safety of the American people. All of this has been... So somehow somebody working for, I don't know if JAMA did it themselves, there was an analysis done of gun-related homicides and suicides from 2007 to 2010, I guess as much information as they could garner. And they were merely doing this to find out that if there was a prevalence of gun-related death in states that had the fewest gun control measures, and that if states had more stringent measures or more measures, were there fewer deaths. And I have often heard, as sort of popular wisdom, gun aficionados say that, it's been proven that these gun laws don't have any impact whatsoever on, who gets killed or how many get killed or this and that. This report in JAMA, which was published yesterday, says otherwise. It flat out says that states with the most gun control laws, they're not even looking at them qualitatively, just quantitatively. States with the most gun control laws have the fewest gun-related deaths. And they say maybe that means that quantity can matter as well. If there's more hoops to be jumped through, there's less opportunity for people to get hold of guns, and that actually does have an impact on the number of people who end up dead. It says overall, states with the most gun control measures had a 42% lower gun death rate than states with the least number of gun control laws. That's not a little number. 42% fewer gun-related deaths in states with the most gun control laws as opposed to states with the fewest. We're talking about people's lives here. 42%. Nothing to sneeze at. And, hey, did you see how much the Heinz CEO made on that deal? Did you see that? Let's just say he ended up in the top 10 the largest exit packages for an American CEO. Yep. William Johnson. Boy. He's the CEO of Heinz. He's the one who met and agreed to the sale. And he walks away from that with more than $200 million. I know these numbers don't even mean anything to anybody anymore, do they? You hear that and you think, is that high or is that low? 200 million, what is that? And so if you sort of round it up just a little bit and say, well, that's like $250 million. Does that make, if you can get the billion in, maybe that gets people's attention now. Although, since we have trillions of dollars floating around when we're talking about debt and other things, I don't know that any of that, I think throwing these numbers around is just meaningless. Until you go from he made almost $250 million on the sale, and then you put that kind of pay in relation to what the minimum wage is. And then it makes it seem slightly egregious, does it not? And he got up to $200 million by a $56 million golden parachute. And also bonus payments and other stuff. They don't even $57 million in pension. Like he needs a pension. I'll tell you who needs a pension. The people whose pensions are being taken away, and the people whose pensions are being, truncated. The people who won't have a pension. That's who needs a pension. William Johnson needs a pension like he needs a hole in the head. All right, $56 million golden parachute, $57 million pension. Deferred compensation also involved in that. And $100 million in shares of Heinz. Well, now I don't want us to be envious of someone else's good fortune. And I'm sure this man worked very, very hard. He probably did work hard. But you know what? So do millions upon millions of Americans. And harder work in many ways, where you go home and you can't even stand, you're so exhausted work. And they don't even make a living wage. It's sickening. And finally this, from Great Britain. An English couple is in mourning today for their pets, Henry and Alice. Henry and Alice are tortoises. They were the pets of the Clayton family, and who live in, I love these British names. The Clayton family lived in Thornaby, Stockton-on-Tees. And the tortoises, Henry and Alice, were kept in there. They had a wonderful little place in the conservatory of the home and garage. Maybe those are one and the same. I don't know. Conservatory sounds a lot better, doesn't it? And they had a little heat lamp that kept them nice and toasty. And it was surrounded by wood chips, and they had everything the tortoises could want. Now, they've been hibernating much of the winter, and they were just sort of arousing themselves as the spring came on, and Henry got even more aroused. He took one look at Alice after that long winter and said, "Hey, baby." And so Henry starts going after Alice. And this is all they figure. They can't quite place it, but they think what happened, and they could tell just sort of from what was left of the conservatory, that Henry, in his pursuit of Alice, and this would be pursuit literally and figuratively, somehow the two of them in their sexual shenanigans knocked over their heat lamp, which set on fire the wood chips, which burned down the conservatory, and which took their lives. Jess is crying. Henry and Alice. But what a way to go! They literally set fire to the place. Their passion, so great. And then this article says, this is not the first time that animal courtship has gone wrong. And then they point out something that happened here in Pittsburgh just last year. Do you remember when the Parkway West was brought to a stop because a bull and a cow were doing it? Seriously. On the road? Wait, isn't that a Beatles song? Why don't we do it? Why don't we do it in the road? Well, so this bull, yeah, you don't remember that? Because there it is. They say, in June, a cow and bull having sex on a Pennsylvania highway caused a major traffic jam when they just wouldn't move out of the way. All right, that's it. That's it. Tomorrow, guys, okay? Have a great day.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.